The suburb of Mjølnerparken north of Copenhagen has a bad reputation. Under Danish law, it is considered what's called a parallel society. That label shocks many who live here, people such as Saeed, a young architecture student.
If you grew up here and you experience like the government is kind of like enforcing rules, but only on a part of, the society, you're gonna feel like there's no justice.
Since 2018, Danish authorities have established criteria to define parallel societies, often also called ghettos. Among them are unemployment over 40%, a crime rate above the national average, and above all, 50% or more of the inhabitants must be of non-Western origin. If these criteria are met, the dismantling can start. Here, 2 buildings were leveled and 2/3 of the social housing units will be privatized.
This is how Mjølnerparken will look seen from above when we have finished the renovation.
On the ground, the local housing authority is in charge of applying the new government policy. The methods may seem aggressive, but they're necessary, says the project manager.
We had a gang war in Copenhagen in 17, and before that we had some terror shootings in 15, which in some ways were connected to Mjølnerparken. And that in many ways set us years back, at least in what you can say, the patience of the politicians.
250 families were forced to move. Most of them were sent back to neighborhoods further away from downtown. But a number of residents, like Mike Fella, are refusing to leave.
I like it a lot because people are super nice, basically. There's always this feeling that you can talk to everybody.
Mike Fella is a teacher and has lived in Mjølnerparken for 8 years. Along with other neighborhood residents, she is suing the government for what she considers to be a policy of racial discrimination. And their arguments happen to be backed by a United Nations report.
It is the first time in Danish history that the UN is a part of a lawsuit against the Danish government. Of course, the law is also discriminatory against people with low income or people who don't have like a long education. But the determining factor, the determining criteria is the criteria about the non-Western origin. And that's also what we target in the lawsuit.
In Copenhagen, 2 neighborhoods are currently considered to be parallel societies which must be dismantled. Here in Tingbjerg, the local government freed up plots of land for the construction of private housing. A one-family home here costs 300,000 euros, much too expensive for the people who live in the neighborhood.
And you will see actually it is mostly the ethnic Danish people who live there.
Layla grew up here but can barely recognize the place. She's a student and is a Danish citizen with Tunisian and Palestinian roots. She says the so-called anti-ghetto law stigmatizes immigrant populations.
First of all, my name is not Danish. My last name is not Danish either. And my address is very difficult for me to find a job.
The tough integration policy, now being implemented by the Social Democratic government, is supported by the majority of other political parties. The mayor of Copenhagen, in charge of integration, says it's already a success.
If you want to hold this, we can see that the crime is going down, and where it's very easy and visible is that much more people are now having a normal job. The unemployment rate has fallen with 30% in that area. So we can see that it's going in the right direction.
In Denmark, the migration crisis of 2015 marked a turning point. That year, the country welcomed more than 75,000 migrants, a big jump from an average of 50,000 since 2010. That increase in numbers sharpened the debate on immigration and integration. Rajesh Holman is running for office in the Mjølnerparken riding as a candidate of a new green and anti-racist party. He says the anti-ghetto law is meant first and foremost to send a message to all immigrants.
For the last 20 years, different governments have tried to compete with having the most strict immigration policy. And it's about to send a signal to refugees and immigrants not to come to Denmark. So slowly, step by step, all policy have turned right and it has become what it is today, the most strict policy.
The government wants to get rid of all the neighborhoods that are considered to be ghettos before 2030. Some 20 neighborhoods are currently on the list of so-called parallel societies.